Hi guys, this is Sagar here, and today I'm here to talk about why today's rupee is fake and why the old rupee is worth close to 6 US dollars in today's exchange rate. So let's dive right in. Now, if you look up the word rupee and the history of the word rupee, you'll find that it comes from a Sanskrit word which just means wrought silver or basically a silver coin. So that's all that rupee means, just a silver coin. And if you look at the history, you'll find history of silver and money in India. You'll find that uh, the word for money in India is rupee, and rupee literally means silver coin. So basically, someone in ancient India who was wealthy and doing well would have a lot of silver coins, or his wealth would be measured in the weight of silver that he had in his bank account. And someone who had no silver or less silver was less wealthy and less was more poor basically. So money was measured in the weight of the silver that somebody held. So this was during the ancient times. So money equals silver equals rupee. And let's talk a little bit about the history of silver coin usage. Uh, for the most part of the last 3000 years, India has been on a silver standard. We have predominantly used silver coins as a store of value, as money. And of course, we've also had a little bit of copper coins and gold coins as well, but predominantly in everyday use, it has been silver that has been used extensively. And talking about the largest empires in India, in ancient India, it's definitely the Mauryan Empire. And during his reign, from around 297 BC to 272 BC, uh, the Royal Mint issued they made silver coins weighing around 3.4 grams. So that was the money that they would use to buy goods and services back then. And in today's exchange rate and in today's silver rate, this if you do the conversion, it comes up to be around, it would be, that coin from 300 BC would be worth around 163 Indian rupees as of today. And in today's exchange rate for the US dollar, it would fetch you around 2.17 US dollars. And this was from 300 BC. Moving on, we have Sher Shah Suri. He's a king from North India, the Delhi Sultanate, and his reign was from 1538 to 1545 AD. And his royal mint, they produce silver coins weighing around 11 grams each. And this in today's if you do the conversion of silver rate for per gram, it comes up to be around it would be worth 500 rupees in today's rupee. And if you convert that to the dollar, it would be worth around 6.6 US dollars. We're talking about the coin which weighed around 11 grams back then. And finally, around 1840s, the early 19th century, the British came along, the East India Company came along, they came to India and they started minting their own coins with the queen's face on the silver coin. And once again, money in India was still, a single rupee was a coin of silver, around 91.2 or 7%, 91.7% pure silver, around 10 to 11 grams. So this was 1 rupee. 1 rupee was 1 silver coin. And if you could do the conversion, the 1 rupee from 1840s minted by the British East India Company would fetch you around 559 rupees today. And this is just the intrinsic value. And if you convert that to US dollars, it would fetch you 7.45 US dollars today. This was during the reign of Queen Victoria. And post Queen Victoria, I believe they went to war with the Germans. And what happened was the nature of money changed. It changed from something that holds intrinsic value like a gold or silver coin to a promise to pay the bearer. So as you can see on the screen, the one of the first rupee notes issued by the government of India, uh, yes, from the government of India of the early 20th century, basically around 1910, was just a paper note promising to pay the value of one silver coin, 1 rupee, as you can see. And well, the reason for the change, if you're wondering why the British government from 1910 to 1936 switched from silver coins to paper notes, is because two reasons. The first was they were engaged. The first reason was they were engaged in, they were in World War One fighting the Germans in Europe, and number two, they were obsessed with tea, and they had exchanged all their silver for all the silver in the treasury for tea that they purchased from China. So this led to depleted silver reserves, and they just issued paper notes in its place. So basically, they were broken. That was the reason why um, it was just a paper note promising silver. So yes, 1910 to 1936, during the reign of King George V, uh, we had like a single a paper note promising 1 rupee worth of silver to be paid by the government of India to the people, to the bearer. And post the British Empire, uh, India gained its independence in 1947, and the only change in the money that Indians used was we went from having the sculpture of the picture of a monarch, of a British monarch, and that was replaced by um, our prime minister, president, uh, historical figures from India. So that was the only thing that changed, and it's still a promise to pay 1 rupee. It's not really silver anymore. They use stainless steel. It's just a promise to pay one coin of silver, 1 rupee. So it's just a promise, basically, to pay 10 grams of silver from the government of India. Moving on, um, pre-World War, most of the world was using money or gold or silver, which had intrinsic value. So it didn't matter whether you got your silver or gold from UK or from, say, the US. It had intrinsic value, and you could convert it, take it anywhere, and exchange it for whatever goods and services you wanted in that local currency. Um, but this was pre-World War, and money had intrinsic value back then. And then came post-World War One, where everybody, the entire world basically, slowly started moving towards paper money, like complete paper money, which is not really backed by gold and silver, just a paper with a promise from the central government to pay the bearer, as you can see clearly mentioned in the paper notes. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the balance sheet of the Central Bank of India, the Reserve Bank of India, basically. And we're looking at the latest numbers. Well, not the latest, but 2019 numbers. This is the screenshot of a balance sheet from the annual report of the Reserve Bank of India. And I was just curious. I wanted to know how much of the Indian currency is really, the Indian note rather, the Indian rupee is really backed by physical metal, physical gold and silver. And it was really surprising to me that the base currency, the reserves that the RBI holds. So if you take a look at the net assets and the net liabilities, you will see that the Reserve Bank has issued notes. On the left hand side it says notes issued. So a total of around 41,000 billion rupee notes and other reserves. That's the amount of paper notes that they have. And if you take a look at the total number of gold and silver and bullion, it's just around 1600 billion rupee worth metal. So basically, let me repeat that, 41,000 rupees, 41,000 billion rupees worth notes and reserves backed by 1600 1,600 billion rupees worth of metals. So let's, and this is base money, please keep in mind. So base money, I'll come to that soon. Now if you take a look at the money supply, so base money is what M0 and M1, these are the most liquid. They are treated as bank reserves, and the other most liquid assets are considered M0 and M1. And M2 and M3, if you add credit and other deposits which are not that liquid, so less liquid kind of money, that would be M2 and M3 supply. And if you wanted to take a look at the total amount of money in circulation in a country, you could look at the M3 money supply. And as you can see, for as per the data here, as per the RBI documentation, it looks like they have around 173,000 or 1,73,000 billion rupees worth M3 supply of M3 money supply. And that, if you do all the calculation, let me just fast forward here. If you do all the calculation, you will find that in terms of gold reserve, just 4% of our money supply and the most liquid money with the RBI is backed by gold and silver. And if you look at the total money supply in India, then you'll find that only 0.96% of the total money supply in India is backed by physical metals. And guess what the rest of the money is backed by? It's just the US dollars, treasury notes from the US, which is just more paper money. There's not really any tangible asset there, just paper money and promises. So all of this money in India is just backed by less than 1% of gold reserves, gold and silver reserves. And so to recap the entire uh, presentation, I think the point I'm trying to make is pre 1971, interestingly, money was measured in the weight of silver and gold. So the more silver and gold you had, the more money you had. But post 1971, we measure silver and gold in paper notes. So we have a market for silver and gold, and we have an exchange rate, we have a rate for silver and gold. So it's really ironic that we've gone from measuring money in terms of silver and gold to measuring silver and gold in terms of paper notes now. So so that's the end of the presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.